The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
Well, good morning, everybody. That's right, I said morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
Yes, yeah. So today, first of all, there's a couple of cool things that are going to happen. First of all, we have a very, very special guest on the show. Okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, welcome to the Sentinel Mindset Podcast. Okay. What do you think of that title? The Sentinel Mindset Podcast.
Geez, I'm surprised you've got me here.
Yeah. Was that the surprise?
That was a surprise.
Okay, so you hear it, folks. Even myself is the first time hearing it, as well as Joe. Sentinel Mindset Podcast.
Yeah, and I think the reason why
SMP.
SMP. The reason why I really like that title, Joe, is because today we're gonna find out just a little bit about the mindset of Joe Balz. And who is Joe Balz? I mean, Mike, we say this all the time to all our guests. Who is Joe Balz? I could put Mike on the spot, but I think I'm going to just take a little bit of this right now, just in case he doesn't get this right.
I'll fill in the blanks.
So Joe is someone that is very dear to our hearts. Mm-hmm. Joe has been with the organization now for a couple of years. And we'll get later on into how we first met, Joe.
I think it's more than a couple. We keep saying that.
Yeah,
I think you've been saying a couple of years for a couple of years.
I think we're up to about 7 right now.
Yeah.
That's a good handle.
No, it's for
several.
Sure.
You can say several now.
Yeah, but I'll get into how we met Joe. Maybe I will get into that. But Joe is someone that, again, has been a masterpiece to the organization to completely shift, I guess, our mindset and our operations for close protection. Mm-hmm. And, just like, they have Mike Holmes for Home Depot, right, to represent. Mm-hmm. When we were looking for somebody to kind of run and develop our department, we basically found the gift of God, okay, which was Joe Balz, okay? So, Joe, who is Joe? Joe was with the RCMP for 31 years, okay? And if I'm saying things that are off, you let me know, because I do have a tendency just to start going off.
Yes.
31 years. Out of those 31 years, you were in the VIP unit for 13 years?
Yes.
And in that time frame, Joe was instrumental in training and developing basically many of the chosen RCMP to work in the VIP unit.
Yeah, I didn't actually choose them, but I was responsible once they were chosen to train them.
That's right. And not only did he train within the RCMP, but it also spilled to other police forces as well, based on basically the type of training required in that kind of range of close protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I was involved with the national training program with the RCMP, which is responsible for training all the RCMP members on how to do close protection.
Right.
On top of that, because we're associated with other police departments across the country, both provincial and municipal, we require their assistance when we're doing major VIP events.
Right.
So they're support people for us. So in order to attract these other organizations to work with the RCMP, we felt it very important to train these people as well in the VIP perspective.
Right.
On top of that, because the RCMP runs the Canadian Police College, and that's visited by police forces around the world, they also brought in police departments from other areas of the world that were interested in learning about close protection.
Right.
Now, most of the major countries like U.S., Britain, France, Germany, they all have their own training organizations and their own federal police that look after that type of assignment.
Right.
But there were countries that didn't have that ability. And in even the countries like U.S., we had a group come from Hong Kong that we trained. They would come to see if their standard of training or their methods were similar to the RCMP. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate to train a number of people from around the world.
No, for sure. And it's not like Mike. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, did they come to you when you were training these other outside police forces? Did they come to you, or did you go to them in their area to train them?
No, they came to Canada because all our training with the RCMP is across Canada. So typically, every year they would pick one or two areas or provinces where they would run the training. So provinces where there was a need, like things like APEC summits, G8 summits, things like that. If they were in a specific province, we would usually use that province as the place to train the individuals, so they wouldn't have to come to Ottawa or whatever. So I've trained in every province in Canada other than the Northwest Territory. So I've been to every province to do the training.
And just for all our American friends who are listening, saying, what is the RCMP? The RCMP is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And the VIP unit within the RCMP is the equivalent in the U.S. to the Secret Service.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just for those understanding, it's not just the U.S. guys. We have it in Canada as well. Okay, we have a thing called the Prime Minister. For those that don't know, and the Prime Minister is like your president. If anyone just didn't know,
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's really nice.
Again,
of you.
just
It's really
you know.
nice of you.
Well, just to elaborate on that, just for the purpose of people from other countries, the RCMP is a federal police department in Canada. They are hired by the provinces to perform not only federal policing roles, things like VIP, drugs, immigration, customs, but we also, in some provinces, do the federal or the provincial or municipal police duties as well. Unlike the U.S., where they have a number of agencies, FBI, Secret Service, immigration,
CIA.
customs, CIA, that are all separate. The one nice thing about the RCMP, it's one organization that does all of that. Now, in a number of years ago, CSIS was part of the RCMP, and it broke off to be its own agency. But for the most part, the rest is all one agency, which in a way is better because when you need information, it's easier to get it from within your own organization as opposed to, and I've dealt a lot with U.S. agencies. When you cross the border, not only are you talking to the FBI, you're talking to customs, immigration, all those, and they don't seem to work together
This
all
makes
that
for a
well.
good conflict in a movie. All the different layers in these
Absolutely,
movies,
and the trouble is everybody wants their own stake in the event, and the problem is everybody thinks they're the most important person. So here within Canada, we've been very fortunate that there isn't a fight between the agencies because it's one agency.
And would it be safe to say that your allegiance is to the Queen?
Well, that's part of becoming a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Yes, I just for those again.
Whether you like it or not, that's part of the.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
I'm
Throw it in.
just being funny right
No,
now.
didn't you have some time? I mean, was it 13 years as well, looking after the royal family?
Well, in my role in the RCMP, we did visits on a daily basis. In the RCMP, just to let your listeners understand this, the RCMP is responsible for all protection of not VIPs, but governmental VIPs or people deemed by the government to be internationally protected people. So, which includes heads of state, royalty, the Pope, and then anybody else that the country feels may cause harm to the country.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're responsible for providing protection for those people. Having said that, they don't do celebrities, they don't do business people. It's basically heads of state. So in the 13 years I was with the RCMP, because we do royalty protection as well, members of the royal family constantly come to Canada on various trips and events. And so I was very fortunate in my 13 years to be able to work with every member of the royal family in one facet or another. I spent a lot of time working with Prince Andrew because of the fact that he used to go to school in Lakefield by Peterborough. And we in our office, it worked on a rotation basis. So when a visit came in, there was 4 squads. The first squad would get the first one, the second squad would get the second visit. And it was fortunate or unfortunate for me that a lot of times when Prince Andrew, who came the most regularly because he did a lot of fundraising for the college, it was always my unit's turn to look after them. And so I got to work with him probably 5 or 6 times.
Right.
To the point where I think one of the last visits that he came to Canada, it wasn't actually my unit's turn to work the detail, but I got to know all the members of his entourage and his event planning people, and they specifically asked for me, which caused a lot of problems in the office. But they said the reason they wanted me was because I knew all the people that they dealt with, that I knew all the venues, and rather than have a cost to the government for them to come over to do a planning visit, they asked me to do it and do the planning of the event, and then obviously forward that information over to them, save them a lot of time and effort.
Right.
So I was fortunate to do that.
Was it approved for you to do it? Did
Oh
you-
yeah,
you
yeah.
did it last
Because
time?
anything like
Yeah.
that would have to go through the government.
Yeah.
And in some cases, as high as the Prime Minister's office, for that to be approved. And like I say, even within the office, I mean, we had a protocol that we were always trying to share the work. But something like that, like I say, that was very unique. It only happened once. And although, I was quite thankful to do it, I know there was a lot of people that didn't have an opportunity to work with him, felt very slighted by the fact that they didn't get the opportunity.
I mean, let's go into opportunities. I mean, right now we're going to go in the Sentinel mindset. Yeah. Okay. So, Joe, one of the biggest things that we talk about all the time, it's a reoccurring theme, is, what does it take to be a close protection or executive protection? I mean, it's just another version for many listening out there that are not involved in those industries. What does it take to be a bodyguard? But you built a career on training people to get to a place where their mindset has to shift to protect another person's life. And you see this every time. You can see something very easily and be like, yes, this is the thing that you can take you to get closer to that goal. When you look at close protection, what do you think is the most sought after skill that somebody needs to be successful in that industry?
Well, I think foremost, communication is a big factor in having a somewhat of a customer service type mentality, because it is crucial as close protection is. First of all, you have to understand close protection is more than just one thing. I've been very fortunate in my career to have not only worked with government and heads of state, Queen, Pope, people like that, but when I retired from the RCMP, I went to Scotiabank, and I was director of protective services, which was responsible for protection of all the executives and the security of all the event properties and or bank properties and events. And so when I went over there, I learned very quickly that everything I learned within the RCMP, although it was very important and helpful, the way I did my work was completely different. So if you imagine Olympics are going on right now, and you look at the biking or even the swimming venues, okay, because somebody can breaststroke very good, doesn't mean they can do the butterfly. Or the other events.
Yeah, very true.
And so all that training is different, and the mentality is totally different on how you approach the event. So I learned very quickly when I went to the bank that it was a totally different mindset of dealing with people, and their expectation was totally different than working with heads of state. And then fortunately, again, for me, I had an opportunity when I left the bank to go to CTV, and entered into the entertainment facet of close protection, which again is completely different than the other two avenues. Again, the basic, when you learn to ride a bike, there's only one way to really ride a bike. But to do the different events, you have to know the different methods and the different mentalities.
And you have to be
approach.
adaptable. And you got to be adaptable.
Look, VIP protection is adaptability, flexibility, and common sense. And when I do my training, the first thing I start with people is I tell them, if they're not adaptable, if they're not flexible, they're not suited for this job. And the last thing that I can't teach is common sense. So, as much as I can teach people to do things, I can teach somebody to ride a bike, but I can't teach them a mountain bike.
Right.
I can't have them go to a velodrome. And so, those are aspects that some things people can bring to the table and other things they can't. And common sense, one of the things that I start my presentations on, I go, think of these people as though you're looking after a 3-year-old child. How would you, when you're walking down the street with a 3-year-old child, how would you protect them? And everybody will tell me how they do it. And I go, so you've been doing close protection for all your life. You just didn't know you were doing it. Mm-hmm. Because it all boils down to threat risk assessments and where the problems come from. So you wouldn't walk a 3-year-old along the curb of a sidewalk. You put them on the inside so you protect them from potential harm.
So look, this is amazing to hear this, and I think for a lot of people that are aspiring to get into close protection, turn your ears on right now, okay? Because this is some gold nuggets that we're hearing here. I find, Joe, being part of an operation here and seeing many people that want to come in and get into close protection, I find that they say what they want, but they don't know what it entails, and their mindset is off completely. Now, let me give you an example. I had somebody that I was part of an interview a while back, and I asked them, so tell me, what do you want to be? What's your career aspirations? I want to be a police officer, they said to me with bold confidence. And I said, oh,
we need good police.
That's great. That's fantastic. But they didn't stop there. And I will then be the chief of police. And I said, whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You have my attention right now. But I'm also going to pull up my magnifying glass now because we're going to zero in right now and see what you're going to do to get there. And as we're talking back and forth, it came upon about availability, and I don't do night shifts. Now, have you ever heard of a police officer, potentially the chief of police, that doesn't do a night shift, Joe? Out of curiosity?
I won't answer that question.
Okay, so maybe the chief of police doesn't work a night shift. But
look,
it is
look
part
what
of
I
the
mean.
job.
Before they got there, obviously they had to put in their time. So.
Yeah, but the point of it is that the reason why I bring it up, because I'm going to lead to a question right now, is how often do you have people that want to get into close protection and they just don't grasp what it really takes? And then they kind of create a failure for themselves. Like they kind of created a failure rule for themselves.
Hold on. Are you assuming that there's people who put their hand up to do this and maybe they weren't meant for it?
I actually do.
I want to know what happened.
Look, I totally agree with what you're saying because, one of the things I always bring up when we're talking about close protection, everybody watches James Bond. And who doesn't want to be James Bond? Yeah. Gets to drive fancy cars, go around the world, do all kinds of neat things. But how many people would put in the sacrifice that these people have to put in
right.
to get to that level? And you're absolutely right. When people come in and they want to take the training in that, the first thing I try to do is first of all, my workshops and my training is based on what they're going to be going through on a regular basis within VIP. So I try to make days longer. I try not to give breaks. I try to make it not overly difficult, but just little nuggets so that when they, after about 3 hours and they're starting to fall asleep or whatever, I'm going, okay, so now you're with a business executive, you're at his office for 8 hours a day and you have to be on. And you can't nod off. You can't be taking off. You can't be on your telephone. And so what they don't realize is, they've watched the Bodyguard movie with Kevin Costner, and that's all great.
It's a great movie.
But the reality is, 80% of bodyguarding is the most boring thing you'll ever do. And there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this and say that this is all BS and whatever. The reality is bodyguarding is babysitting, okay? Babysitting at a different level. Babysitting at looking after the safety and security of people. And here in Canada, we've been very fortunate that we have never had real bad situations that have happened, unlike the U.S., where they've had assassinations of presidents and shootings and things like that. So we've been very fortunate. That's not to say it's not going to happen here. and we have to be aware of that. So how do I train a person to be ready for that assassination moment? It's very difficult, and so people have to understand there's more to put into. Like, you have to put the work in.
Can we break it down a bit? That's like, think of that statement you just said. How do you train someone for that assassination moment? You know, that's like, even phrased that way should make you nervous. You know, just to consider that could happen, right? If you're going to step into it, instead of answering that on a large scale, what is it that what type of person would maybe be suited to do this? So we've said things like, to be a great EP agent, you need to have customer service. You got to be able to work with people. 3 intangibles you talked about: being flexible, adaptable, and having common sense, right? You know, now if someone, but they also, even through maybe a long career of decades, have to be, within milliseconds, have to be able to respond. So when you're training people, give us an idea. What does it take? And I think this is really great because, again, just like a lot of people say that they watch a sport, I want to be a pro athlete, right? They see someone sing, I can sing too. I sing in the shower. My mom tells me I'm a good singer. I should go on this. I should have it. Okay, there's so many people out there, which is good. I mean, we're not here to crush people's dreams, but at the same token, I love, Constantine, what you said when this hopeful who was coming to get hired here had said, and very proudly, right,
Yes,
that they want to be police. And they actually want to be chief of police. Why did you say? You said that now you got to look with a microscope now,
Right,
Because
right.
you're basically saying, let's see what you do.
that's right.
Let's see who you are. Let's see your mentality, and let's look at what you do probably every single day. And then you were asking because I know you would have applauded her, because if she gave you an idea of who she was, and if it was in line,
Yes.
you would tell her.
Absolutely.
You'd say, and this is what's cool about like our interview process. It's just you tell her maybe something like this, that if you keep going this route, I can tell you, you're on the path.
Right.
You're on the path. Keep doing these things. Get around people that can really challenge you. This is a work environment. We can maybe help you along the way. All that stuff. So I come back to my question to you. What does it take with someone? Like, if someone is like really listening and they want to know, because in our industry, everyone wants to work this. This is, what was it, high novelty? It has a high novelty value.
Right.
Maybe it tells a good story at that Christmas and Easter party. You know what I mean? No, but beyond that, and beyond red carpets and all the press, and I love, like, you would always break this down. Never get sidetracked by that. That's not the job. It's not the job every day, and it's not the job to fall in love with. So, like, what does it take at the core?
It takes determination, working hard, putting up with all the minutia that comes with it. I mean, as I just said, a lot of this work is boring. And again, I can't train boring, but one person told me once, your past experience will dictate your future experience. So if you're a person that has never worked hard in the past, it's very rarely that those people will become people that are driven people and succeed.
I mean, Joe, imagine if people think that's boring. I wonder what the Queen's Guard thinks when they're just standing there for 12 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And those are people, they've been trained, and going back to the training part of it, it's repetition. And so even the boredom, it's repetition, doing the same thing every day and realizing, maybe this is not what I want to do. Like, I've seen time and time again, sending people out on jobs. And again, the problem is with probably, I'd say 70% of the people that want to get into this profession are in it for the bright lights and
Yep.
and obviously in some cases you can make a lot of money. On the same token, there's a lot of people who will do it for next to nothing just to build a resume.
And you're speaking more specifically to the private, right? To protection
yes,
within the private sector.
absolutely.
Yes.
Because, like I say, people want to build a resume, and they think that they're going to be George Clooney's next bodyguard, who, for the guy that's running the operation, he's probably making a lot of money. But I'm telling you, when people like that come to Toronto, they're hiring local people to assist them, and they're not paying these people a lot of money, because why should they? They just want them to stand in front of a hotel room. So, and these people are happy to do that just to be able to say, I did George Clooney's protection. Look, I had a fella taking a workshop from me, and I asked people in the class. I said, "Who's done EP work before?" Fellow put up his hand. I said, "So what did you do?" He says, "Well, I was in Suits, the TV show here in Toronto. I was doing protection for one of the lead actors." I said, "Oh, so like what did you do? You picked him up in the morning?" No, I used to walk his dog." I said, for crying out loud, that's not close protection.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's a fallacy here. People just want to be close to these people. They don't really want to do the job.
Yes.
And
So it's not so close protection.
no.
Maybe is that,
Look, I can tell you 3/4 of people that work TIFF in Toronto Film Festival, when you go down to the theaters and whatever, they're all close protection professionals because they stood outside the theater and stood where the cars pulled up and people got out.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. By their own admission.
Yeah, by their own admission.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know people when you say who have you worked before, and because they worked the film festival and there was 50 stars there, they put 50 people's names down because they were standing there when they walked by them.
Okay, so I'm going to pause this for a second. This is actually a very cool story.
Not so close protection.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, maybe we just birthed it.
No, okay. So, guys, before we go further, you're about to hear a story now from John. I'm going to set this up nicely. Be very, very, very careful of what you profess to be to impress others, because one day you could get caught. Okay. Now, Joe, you referenced a story
Or called on it.
or called on it, right?
Yeah.
You referenced a story that somebody was talking with you and about basically working, I think, for the royal family.
Right.
And how about you just kind of go there? Because to me, I thought this to be like a perfect. They did not realize that they weren't, when they're talking to Joe, telling them about a detail they did for the royal family, that Joe worked for the royal family.
Yeah.
So, Joe, why don't you tell us just that story? Because I think it's a good story for people to hear about ensuring that, again, one day your fact check's going to get fact checked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, I tell people in the security industry all the time, be careful with what you do, whether it's guarding, close protection, or anything within security, because it's a small industry and the people in the know each other. And whether they know you or not, that the stories about you are going to come out. And when you're bouncing from company to company, the bad stuff will come out. When I was at Scotiabank, like I said, I was director of protective services. We had to hire a fellow in BC. So I flew out to Vancouver, interviewed the person. I looked at his resume, and right away I knew there was flags in the resume. And one of the things said he did close protection for the royal family. So look, I've done protection for the royal family for 13 years, including Princess Diana. So I'm not saying I knew everybody, because I didn't know everybody, but I knew a large group of protection officers with the royal family. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to have fun with this, because he didn't know my background. He knew I was the boss, but he didn't know my background. So I went and interviewed the fellow, and I said, so we talked about other areas of security that he'd worked, and I said, I see here you were with the royal family. He says, oh yeah, I did. I provided protection for the royal family. I said, so were you with the protection unit of the royal family? Oh yeah. I said, okay, that's interesting. I said, who did you work with? Well, he couldn't give me a name. So right away I knew I knew this was going south right away.
Right.
So again, I didn't want to jump in.
You didn't even give your dog's name, right?
No. So I thought this was quite interesting, and look, I'm a bit of a schemer, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna let this run for a little bit, because I'm having fun talking to this guy.
Right.
So I said, so you were there, you provided protection. Oh yeah, I said, so who were you responsible for? Oh, I looked after the Queen, and I know there was only a small number of close protection officers, because each protection officer is responsible for a member of the royal family. So they don't have an unlimited number of people that come in and out. And typically the people will stay anywhere from a number of years to as long as the member of the royal family wants them.
I think it's amazing that he didn't pick up on your scheming here to ask him.
Well,
and he decided, he didn't think, maybe I should say a duchess or something. He actually said the Queen. Like, he's going for a home run. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, all in. He's all in.
And and that's the problem with resumes, because you never know who's going to read them, and you never know who knows somebody that may know you. And so he went on and on. I said, so like, what did you do? So he started telling me about an event in one of the smaller towns. And I said, so you were with the bodyguard team? And then over time, because I was asking a lot of kind of direct questions, I think I could feel the sense that he knew the jig was coming to an end very quickly. And then it was like, he says, yeah, I was working the crowd. And I go, well, what do you mean you're working the crowd? Rural protection doesn't work the crowd. The local police does that support work. Well, I got to tell you, he says, I was crowd infiltration. I said, well, that's not, you provided security for an event that the Queen was at. That's not rural protection. Right. That's not a member of the rural protection unit. Mm-hmm. And then I stopped and I said, okay, before you go any further, here's my background. 13 years with the VIP section, 13 years working with rural protection. I was on the Queen's bodyguard team. And as it all unfolded, this person just turned completely red and then apologized. And I said, look, you've got to be careful writing what you write and telling people what you're telling them, because another piece of protection is credibility.
Yes.
And when you ruin your credibility, you ruin everything. Mm-hmm. Because don't forget, when you're working with people of that nature, you don't want to be working a head of state. You don't want to be working a celebrity. You don't want to be working a businessman, and they know you have no credibility, because they're not only looking at you as a lifesaver for them, but a lot of the work that we do in rural protection is not in rural protection, but protection in general, is not just the safety and security, but it's keeping people from being embarrassed, mm-hmm. people from accidentally being hurt. For not every day is a terrorist attack. In fact, mm-hmm. in Canada, there really isn't any terrorist attacks. So a lot of the things, even working rural protection, I mean, all you have to do is go in the British press. In most of the comments about the royal family are because they tripped over something, dropped an ice cream cone or whatever. So that's part of what the protection unit does. It's responsible for making sure that the person's not embarrassed and that the person hasn't put themselves in a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And yes, to make sure that they haven't been hurt as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's
funny.
So
listen, to me, what's amazing about this is that we're actually hearing, what literally someone needs to do to be successful in this career. Now, let's just say this, Joe. We've already identified communication. You started by saying communication. Now, we hear this all the time: soft skills, hard skills. Okay. Maybe it's good for you just to kind of explain for many people that are listening, when we say that you need to have strong soft skills, what does that mean?
Okay, so soft skills are really the customer service aspect of the job. Okay, and maybe that's not a terminology when you're talking to other close protection people that they want to use as the terminology. Yeah. But I'm trying to make this simple for everybody. Yeah. Being able to relate to people, being able to work with people, being able to communicate is vital in this job. And so the soft skills are really being able to maneuver around those day-to-day things, make people feel safe, make people happy with what you're doing to help them along the way. And then the hard skills are the things where there's actual an attack scenario or an extreme scenario, crowds, riots, that sort of thing. And there's two aspects to the hard skills. A lot of the people in the industry, and obviously places like the U.S. and that where they've had attacks on people, things like that, it's a little bit more prevalent. So, you want people that have skills with self-defense, martial arts, that sort of thing. You want people that may be good shooters and things like that. But remember one thing about close protection. It's not about returning fire. It's about getting the person out of harm's way. And so one of the biggest problems that I had in my career was when we were doing high-level visits, people like the Queen, the Pope, we always brought in our emergency task force people, mm-hmm. okay? So the hard skill guys, okay? The guys that carried the big guns and had all the equipment.
The CAT team, right?
The CAT team, that's the Secret Service component. So those people obviously bring a component to the table. But the reality is, and these people are the ones that wanted to do the bodyguarding. What you have to remember is we're all trained to do a certain job. And the emergency task force people are the people, just like the military, that are trained to respond to an event. Okay? They're the shooters. They're the attackers. Well, how can they provide that service to a VIP when the shooting starts? What are they going to do? They're going to return the fire. So what's the VIP going to do? Stand there and watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the VIP role for within the RCMP and other agencies is to remove the person from harm's way.
Right.
And if you're standing around looking for a fight, you're in the wrong job.
Get out of the X, as they say.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the President Reagan assassination attempt in Washington, where when the shooting started, yes, one of the agents got shot, and that was in the line of performing his duty. Mm-hmm. But the reality was to get him in the car, get him out of the area, because if you're standing around shooting, and that's what people are trained for, that's what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. So it used to really bother me when these guys wanted to take over the bodyguarding role, because training, much like we continue to do the training, and I tell the fellas all the time, when problems come about, you have to be able to react to that situation immediately. You don't have time to stand there and talk about it or discuss or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's got to be an instinctive reaction. Mm-hmm. And when you look at firefighters, police officers, whatever, when there's an incident, they've been trained to do something a certain way, and they automatically do it. And sometimes it doesn't work out for them. But the reality is, when they're questioned afterwards and they say, "Why did you do that?" Look, there's situations in Canada where there were shootings, and the police officer was asked, "Why did you shoot the guy 6 times?" And the guy says, "Well, that's the way I was trained." Mm-hmm. And through that training, things change over time, because when I trained, it was like, when you start shooting, you empty your magazine, and then you wait and you look. And when you're trained that way, you don't sit there and think about what you're doing. You just automatically do it. And afterwards you go, "Oh, well, that was kind of stupid." But it's an instinctive reaction. Yeah. And same with bodyguarding. You're trained, when you hear a bang or whatever, grab the person and get them out of the way, get them out of harm's way. Yeah. And so that's very important.
You know what's interesting, Joe? Ever since I mean, we've had years of talking and seeing everything and training and all. You know, as an exercise for many people watching, like, if you really want to see if someone has training or not, just observe the bodyguard now, or the agent. So there's been many times where I saw personally the person that's supposed to be the bodyguard, he's looking at the subject, his VIP only, and he's not looking at the crowd at all. Okay, and to me, that's, for me, an indicator is like, how can you not look around and see a threat coming, right? So maybe that's who you get pies in the face, right, or stuff like that. It's because you're not looking the way or your back is to a crowd, when your back is supposed to be towards them. How often do you see people? Because look, just like, you know, if you buy a new car and then you're driving around, oh, everybody has that new car. You know, I have my yeah. How much can you notice, Joe, when people are you know, you're walking, you're seeing an event, and you're seeing bodyguards coming in? Are you able to detect, man, this is not maybe being happening properly, just because of where the agent's eyes are?
Absolutely, and it's not just that, but it's in everything that they do, the way they position themselves, the way they respond to things going on around them,
yes,
how they position themselves between the threat and the individual,
right?
And it's very, very noticeable. You can tell right away when someone's done this job before, and as soon as they open their mouth, it doesn't take too many words before you can tell right away if somebody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you say, one of the things when we're doing training here, I always tell people, when you're working celebrities, you're not there to watch the celebrities. In fact, I say, if you're watching the celebrities, you're gonna watch something happen. We don't need more witnesses in court. Right. We need people to stop the plan from happening. And Tiff's a great example, because look, everybody wants to see George Clooney or Nicole Kidman or whatever.
So are you saying that an agent shouldn't take photos of their principal on the
Look,
carpet?
I've fired people for doing that, and to the where they've actually even called the celebrity over and they're security, and they're leaning
Wow.
over a barricade to get a picture. And right away, when I see that, I know what type of person that is.
Yeah.
That's not what their job is there for. Because one thing I tell the guys all the time, and I actually got caught in this a couple of years ago. Back when I started, we didn't have cell phones. The only thing we had was pagers, okay?
Yeah.
And pager couldn't get you in too much trouble.
Yeah.
So the big thing when I started was we had a saying in the job that if you got caught on TV or picture in the newspaper, you weren't doing your job. Now, there's situations where you have to be close to your VIP, and then there's situations where you can give them a little bit more space. When they're walking into a secure ballroom for a state dinner or whatever, you don't have to be right behind them. So when the TVs are on and the cameras are flashing, you can stand out of the way, let them get their picture. You don't have to be in it. And I know lots of guys back then that wanted to get in the picture so the next day they could take it home and show their mother or their wife or their girlfriend or
Look,
whatever.
Ma.
So it used to be a joke with us is if you got caught on camera
Yeah.
or TV, it cost you a case of beer. It's a bit of a joke,
I
but
like that.
it was trying to make a point to the people.
Yeah.
So not years later, when I retired from all my corporate jobs and I ended up working, thankfully, with a great group like Sentinel Security, and I was teaching the guys, I used to tell the guys, look, don't get caught on camera. And I said, not that we're going to do this here in Sentinel, but it used to cost a case of beer if you got caught on camera. Lo and behold, we're doing an event.
We should resurrect that again.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But the problem was, so I drove this point home, and then about a week later, we were doing an event with some celebrities, and halfway through the day, I get a text from one of the guys that took the workshop, and he said, "Oh, Joe, you owe us a case of beer," and I thought, "What the hell is he talking about?" Anyway, he starts sending me pictures, and I go. As soon as I looked at them, I knew right away they weren't press pictures.
Okay.
Everybody with a camera is taking pictures
Yes,
nowadays,
yes,
and
yes.
it was not something that I had thought about previous. And so nowadays, you don't have to say.
You got to be adaptable.
Well, you have to be adaptable, but you don't have to set yourself up for a picture because you're going to turn on everyday
man.
pictures of that day. You're going to find 5 or 6 photos of yourself, and some of them are going to be really nice photos that weren't set up because cameras are all over the
They're
place,
everywhere.
and you're going to get your shot on social media very quickly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and there's guys that will have their girlfriends, follow their experiences for the day, and they'll have like 50 pictures of what went on. But if that's the
As
goal,
keepsakes, I guess.
yeah. But if that's your goal to do that, then you're in the wrong profession. I'm not saying don't get in a picture, and every once in a while, and look, I've got lots of pictures that I've had with members of the royal family, members with heads of state and things like that, but they were always set up by the organizers at the end of the event because it was something where heads of state would like to thank the local security for helping them. So at the end of the event, usually at an airport or sometimes at the hotel before we left to go to the airport, they would say, "Can bring the security team up. We'd like to get a kind of a family photo of everybody."
Yeah.
And it was like a thank you for the team, okay? It wasn't something that we begged for or whatever. It just happened. And they're nice keepsakes. And look, I've got lots of them. And they're nice reminders, and especially now that I've retired from most of that, they're great for me to look at. But the thing is, that's not why I do the job.
Let me ask you. So why does someone do it? Okay, imagine we've kind of spoken at length on all the misnomers, the little funny, I guess maybe even foolish reasons why people come into this. If we strip that away, and there's someone who just says, "Okay, I understand what it takes. I understand the risk of this role." Why does someone, at the core, like in the most what the most best example of why would someone come into this industry?
Well, again, as I said before, I think most people get caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
And the only
let's,
thing
let's just like, so with who's left, because I think we could probably go forever, right, on the fallacies that people have coming into this. But for the real ones, the ones that maybe some would say they're born for it, or it's in their nature to do this, what is it that they bring, that they exhibit? Like, why would they willingly knowing the risk and knowing, I guess, how difficult this job is. So they might have the discipline, they might have all that, or they are committed and they're driven to develop this in themselves.
I would say the majority of people that get into this job are people, again, they start off with this infatuation thing, whether it's self-infatuation or infatuation with the person that they're working with, because self-infatuation is a big thing. To be able to say, I'm a bodyguard, I'm James Bond.
I see what you're saying.
People get hung up on that.
Yeah.
And why
the high profile aspect of it.
Absolutely. And it's like anything in life. Why do people become doctors? Why do people become lawyers? Why do people do anything? Because over the course of their life or events in their life, they've seen things. They go, geez, I'd really like to do that. The problem is, it's not till you start doing it that you realize, oh, you know what? I didn't think it was like this.
What's a good reason then? Give us an idea of what is a good reason to measure, and that, going back to kind of Constantine's interview, if someone said to you, I want to get into protection, executive protection, because of this, give us an idea of what a good answer would sound like.
To me, that's a hard question to
I know
answer.
it's rare. But
Because again, most people get hung up in only seeing the glitz of something, and it's not till you get into it that you really realize that, oh my God.
So it's kind of part of it. Is that kind of part of the process?
So
Yeah,
Joe,
it's
would you say that was for you as well? Like, would you
know-
say when you joined the RCMP, obviously no one just jumps into the VIP.
I get it.
right?
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say when you did it, like you saw like an appeal of like this is something special because I can kind of hone a different craft? Like, you know what I mean? What was it for you that thought I want to jump into that?
When I first started the RCMP, I wanted to go in undercover drug work. Okay. Much like VIP protection, I tell this story all the time. So I got hung up because I watch Serpico and I watch all those movies and go, oh, this is pretty neat. I can do that. If this guy can do it, I can do that. Okay. So I went through the indoctrination of getting into that line of work. And I found very quickly when I got interviewed, and they had a specific course of action when they go through the interview stage and the prepping stage and all that. And it was very clear to me that, and it wasn't something I pursued for very long, because as soon as I went through that interview stage, I go, man, I am the worst actor in the world. I can't do this. What the heck was I thinking about? But again, it was that kind of infatuation thing that I thought, this is great. I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's like everything else. Once you start doing it, you do the training, you realize that's not for me. I was in a section called Security Systems prior to getting into VIP, which is the same umbrella group as VIP. It's all protective in the RCMP, and it was doing security reviews of major buildings and government offices, and there was different programs going on in Canada at the time. And it wasn't something that I'd aspired to do, but first of all, it was a promotion for me, and it was something new that I never really thought of before. And when I got into it, I realized, this is kind of neat. And it didn't take me long to figure out, you know what, this is going to lead into a future job for me when I leave the force, because there's aspects to this that go beyond policing. Okay. Now, not everybody thinks of things like that, but after when I joined the RCMP, I knew that I wouldn't be in there forever, and I knew I didn't want to, retire completely altogether. So I wanted to have another channel to focus on. So when I got into that, because it was a part of the VIP section, the thing that led me into the VIP unit, because at that time to get into the VIP unit was almost non-existent. There was probably of the 1 or 2 openings a year, if that, there was probably 5,000 people that applied for the job. And when I went into staffing and they said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, VIP. The guy laughed me out of the office. He says, look, we don't have time for this. There's 5,000 people ahead of you. You're never going to make it. Go find something else to do. Okay?
Okay.
So when I was in security systems, the one thing that led me in the right direction was the VIP unit was coordinating a visit for Princess Diana and Prince Charles back in 1991 to come to Canada to do a major visit throughout Ontario. They were going to like 45 different sites I think about 5 or 6 different cities. So one of the things that we were fortunate in the section we were one of the first units to get laptop computers. Okay, up until then everything was handwritten. So these guys were so busy in VIP because it wasn't a big unit that they couldn't keep up doing the threat risk assessments and the site security plans. So they came to my boss and said, look, we need 2 guys. Can you give us 2 guys that can help us do this? So they came to me and one of the other guys and they said, will you guys be interested in doing this? This is going to be, and the other thing is they left it to the last minute. So they needed somebody that was willing to work long hours, in a short period of time, do a lot of traveling, and put this stuff together. I saw it as a challenge, okay? Some people would look at it and say, oh, I can get overtime on this.
Yeah.
And that was never where my head was at. And so myself and the other fella did such a great job. Well, okay, I'm blowing my own horn here, but we did I'd say an adequate job, a fairly good job to put this whole thing together, where the head of the VIP unit said, look we're really thankful that you guys were able to pull this off for us. And their boss, who's the superintendent of VIP, was also the superintendent of our section. And we had done such a great job to put it all together very quickly for them. And then we actually even went out and worked the visit. That he said at the end of it, he says, look, you guys did such a great job. If there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. So I go, time out.
Okay, hold on.
Hold on for a second. Look,
Offers on
I
the table.
really would like to get into the VIP section. So he laughed.
Yeah.
He said, he says, look, he says, I'll make, and this was something that was unheard of, okay? It's very unheard of. There was never promises with the RCMP, or very unheard of that most bosses would even make a comment like that. But he said, I'll tell you what, he says, I'm not going in and firing somebody to put you in there, okay? That's not the way it works. But he says, if you can find somebody that will switch with you, or that it's leaving, you will jump from 50 or 500 or 5,000 to number 1.
In the lineup, yeah.
So
Wow.
I went. Now, the unfortunate part for me,
Did you hear this before? Have you ever heard this? I never heard
the
this.
unfortunate part for me was I was a corporal. So what made it even more difficult, there was only 3 corporals in the section. That means I only had 3 people that I had to coerce or deal with.
Yes.
First 2 guys went, absolutely, are you crazy? I'm never leaving. The third guy said, I can't leave. I don't want to leave. And I said, okay. He says, I don't even think this is possible. It's unheard of. It's never been done.
So
I don't believe that they would do that. And I said, okay, well,
Didn't believe you. Oh,
I
wow.
said, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. So unbeknownst to me at the time, the unit that I was working in was getting transferred to London, Ontario. Okay, now I didn't want to go back to London, but anyways, I would have had to go if it didn't happen. I went back to this fella because he was interested in moving out of Toronto. I said, look, if you want, we can make the switch. It'll be a less than a 24-hour thing, and you can get transferred to London. He says, okay, I got to go home and talk to my wife about this. He went home, talked to his wife. Make a long story short, came back and said, I still don't believe this is going to happen, but I will trade with you. Went to the boss, and within an hour, the switch was made.
Wow.
So, again, it's not because I was the greatest guy or whatever. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I produced and showed what I could do, and so it happened. I don't know of anybody else that's happened to. I'm not saying it hasn't. I just don't know that. Like I say, it's a pretty far-fetched story. But again, and a lot of that came through hard work and doing things that most people wouldn't want to do.
I think what's amazing about that story is where you were, you made the most of that, and it opened up an opportunity.
Absolutely.
At the core, someone saw it. Through a bizarre series of random events. You found a guy that was even willing to change. I mean, even that proposition is almost like, I guess maybe whoever said it thought it was just going to be a dead end for you. But you still, it's amazing. You took it and said, okay, I'm going to keep until it's done, it's not done.
And
right?
and he created your opportunity, Joe.
Yeah, that's amazing. I
And-
never
and-
heard that before.
And to me, look, what's so amazing here as we wrap up right now is this. And I think maybe we call this now reflection time. Okay, first of all, Joe, we're going to be having some regular sessions with you because, what's that? Okay.
Is that our belt?
It's our belt.
This is
to
going
kinda
to be our
start.
regular thing?
Yeah. No,
Because we're disciplined and we're on time.
that's right. But Joe, I'll tell you this. There's so much. I mean, I think for anybody listening to this today, there will be a lot more sessions that we'll have with Joe because the one thing I can tell you about Joe is that
If you'd have us.
if
you'd have us.
If you'd have us,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
The one thing I can tell you about Joe is that he literally created his path. Okay.
Yeah.
And we tell this to people all the time. And we say if you look at the job just about the money, you're failing.
Yes.
You are literally failing because your mindset is off. We heard today, Joe, that you said that the job of close protection could be boring, right? However, let's remember one thing, everybody. Your mindset is the strongest tool you have. And if you can rewire your mind to look at something that could be boring and make it exciting, you control that.
Yes.
And Joe, you will be able to literally create these opportunities that you said 5,000 people were ahead of you. And you created that. If anyone's listening to this, guys, understand this right now. You create your opportunities. Joe, you created that. And you are a living testament. And we're honored that you are part of the organization. And I think if a lot of people just listen to this and challenge themselves and put them in a situation, in a mind frame, that if I just go here and here and here, I'm looking at everything from a long-term perspective. Short term takes you nowhere but the short term. Long term is where it's at.
Yeah.
Any closing words at all, Mike?
I was going
on
to
your
say
end?
the other side to that, just to prove it, is the mentality where someone says, I'll take it seriously when the job is serious.
Right.
I'll bring my best when I'm just working here.
Right.
It's just a shift. So who cares? And they make the mistake that where they are right now, and I love what you said earlier, what your performance in past will dictate where you are in your performance in the future. I mean, you can't say it any better than that.
You
That's
can't.
amazing. Joe, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story.
It is.
That's incredible.
And if anybody would like a taste, just a taste of what it's like to get into close protection, Joe does periodically offer workshops that are very enlightening, that do help you get a very good foundation understanding of what it is. And if anybody would like more information about that, feel free to visit our website, sentinelsecurityplus.com. Joe, is there anything else that we'd like to throw in closing words? Anything else? Do you have any handles? I mean, I'm assuming social media. Are you on? I have no idea, Joe.
No.
So social media handles, not love handles. You got to be careful.
No,
Yeah.
I just can't afford cases of beer anymore, so I tried to avoid social media altogether.
Very smart.
You will see me during TIFF once in a while because somebody took a picture of me, but
Yes.
that's not the purpose of why I do this job. You just brought this up about anybody can, if anybody's driven, they want to do something. And look, the Olympics are on right now. Every time you talk to a medalist, especially in Canada, the first thing they're going to tell you is, it can happen. If you work hard enough, it will happen. Follow your dreams and put in the work. And the problem is with most people is they don't want to put in the work. And if there's no money associated with it, for sure they don't want to put in the work. And I'm going to tell you, and we can discuss this another day, but I'll tell you, all the major jobs and experiences I got in life were not because of money, and I'm not saying I didn't get paid. I did get paid, and sometimes quite handsomely, but that was after the fact. It wasn't a condition of the work. But I did things because, I first of all, I wanted to better myself and have opportunities, and most people didn't want to do them.
Yeah.
And like I say,
Because it was beneath them. The role was beneath them.
yeah.
That opportunity, because it's just not appealing to them.
Well,
I would rather do the high level stuff.
I tell people
That's right.
all the time, you got to step up and do the menial tasks to appreciate when you get a good task.
Very true.
And I was a leader within my group, and I used to do the midnight room security details and whatever else. So I let my people know that I'm not above that. I will do the menial jobs just like I expect you to do the menial jobs. And all the people I worked with were people that taught me those values. And unfortunately nowadays, I feel a lot of that stuff is lost on people. And like I say, if there's no money, if it's no money, it's not for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to help people, Joel. We're going to help restore. We're going to help people restore what the mindset should be. And thank you so much for coming down today. I am like so thrilled. I can't wait for people to actually like just digest this, apply to themselves, and make change.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. You know, let's be transparent. Kind of before we even jumped on, we've known Joe for years. This is his first time, kind of publicly, kind of speaking like this, and he had shared with us. It's not really his cup of tea. It's not something that he normally does. Joe, I want to encourage you. It's good if you speak more.
Yes,
people need to know because you have a treasure chest of experiences, and it's amazing that you don't. You know, some people with a couple of coins in their pocket are flashing them around everywhere.
That's
you know,
right.
the industry. You know. Our nation needs to hear some of your experiences. They really learn. You know, maybe not everyone, as you said earlier, they may not like what you're saying, but there's someone there that's going to take this and it will help them to be a little bit more in tune with an actual productive, career. You know,
Right.
I mean, that we need it. The industry needs it. It needs good people that have made a career help other people do that. So and I'm hoping we could do this again soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was really good.
Joe, thank you so much for coming down, man.
All right. Thanks very much.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Let's take a 5-minute break and start again.
Yeah, we'll have another one.
Okay.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.